Hi, I'm Kim Newcomer with the city's Communications and Public Involvement Office, and with me today is Lori Urban from the National Research Center. We're here today to talk about the results from our 2012 Citizen Survey. We do this survey every 2 years, and it gives the city a chance to look at what we're doing well and where we can improve. Plus, it gives our residents an opportunity to tell us what they think about the city services we provide and their quality of life in general. To tell us more about the specifics, I'm going to turn it over to Lori. Lori, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kim, and thanks to the City Council and to the Fort Collins community for allowing National Research Center to conduct the third iteration of the 2012 Citizen Survey. Surveys such as this are used for transparency and accountability. They also are used to measure performance. The presentation that I'm going to be presenting today is an overview of the results that can be found in the full detailed report that I believe can be found on the city's website. General citizen surveys can be used for a variety of purposes. As I mentioned, they can be used to measure government performance over time, as well as monitor trends in resident opinion. The City of Fort Collins has been conducting its citizen survey since 2001, so it has established a long trend line of resident opinion. These survey results can also be used to inform budget and land use and planning decisions, as well as to benchmark its service ratings to other communities across the country. The methods for the 2012 Citizen Survey were very similar to what we've done in the past two iterations. We conducted a mailed survey to 1,800 households within the city, as well as to 200 CSU dormitory students. We received 627 completed surveys for a response rate of 32%, which is a good response rate. In order to ensure that the results are generalizable to the entire community, we weight the survey results, meaning that we look at the profile of the demographics to those who responded to the survey and compare it to the profile of the entire community. Therefore, we're able to generalize the results to the entire population of Fort Collins, the entire adult population. The margin of error around the entire 627 completed surveys is plus or minus 4 percentage points. When we are looking at results over time, which we do compare results to previous survey years throughout the PowerPoint and in the reported results, the margin of error increases slightly to plus or minus 4 percentage points. Additionally, we make comparisons to the national benchmark, other jurisdictions across the nation, as well as to the Front Range, which includes about 30 or so jurisdictions in the Front Range. The presentation today, as well as the report, are structured around the 7 budgeting for outcome measures, the priorities that have been set by the City Council and staff. The first that we'll talk about today is community, neighborhood, and livability. Overall, residents rate their quality of life very highly, with 89% giving a very good or good rating. This is similar to what we've seen since this question was first asked in 2008 and was rated much above both the national and Front Range benchmark comparisons. We asked residents to rate a variety of aspects of quality of life and their community, and generally about 7 in 10 gave very good or good ratings to most of these aspects. Residents gave somewhat lower ratings to the availability of affordable quality housing, with about a third giving a very good or good response to that. Generally, results have remained stable over time. We did see an increase in responses in very good or good ratings to the community acceptance of all people in 2012 compared to 2010. And we did see slightly lower ratings for the availability of affordable quality housing in 2012. However, all of these ratings were much above both the nation and the Front Range benchmarks. The quality of neighborhoods also received high marks, with 81% rating their neighborhood as a place to live as very good or good, and 73% rating their neighborhood as a place to raise children as very good or good. We did see an increase in the ratings of neighborhood as a place to raise children from 2010 to 2012. And neighborhood as a place to live, which was the only item in this set that could be compared to the benchmarks, was rated as much above both the nation and the Front Range benchmark. Another category or priority for budgeting for outcomes that we assessed through the survey was the safety of the community. Overall, the overall safety of residents was viewed as very good or good by 91% of residents. This is a very strong response, and we can see since 2008, ratings have remained relatively stable. There was a rather large jump in the percent of very good or good responses from 2006 to 2008, and things have been trending upward since 2006. This rating was above much above the national benchmark comparison. We also asked residents to rate 8 different aspects of personal safety. This includes safety in different areas around the city. And as you can see, residents feel very safe in this city. We had 8 and 10 rate 7 out of the 8 aspects as always feeling always or usually safe in each of these areas, and 68% said that they felt always or usually safe downtown in Fort Collins at night. And downtown safety at night tends to be in most communities the lowest rating out of all of these. These ratings were similar when compared to 2010 and were much above or above the national and Front Range benchmark comparisons. We asked survey respondents to rate a variety of safety services as well as code enforcement services. We asked about 16 different services. We can see here the 4 highest rated and the 4 lowest rated services. Ratings ranged from 59% very good or good to 85% very good or good for fire services overall. Generally, results remain stable over time and were much above the national and Front Range benchmark comparisons. We also asked a series of questions about the environmental health of the community. Overall, residents felt that the overall quality of the environment in Fort Collins was very good or good, with 87% giving those ratings. These are very similar to what we've seen since these questions were first asked in 2006, and this rating was much above the national and Front Range benchmark comparison. We asked about 4 different aspects of the environment: the community's visual attractiveness, air quality, recycling programs, and conservation efforts all received very good or good ratings from at least 3/4 of respondents. These ratings were similar when compared to 2010 and were much above the national and Front Range benchmarks. Another set of questions on the survey was aimed to assess the quality of transportation and ease of travel in and around the city. We asked about 7 different aspects of transportation and travel in the city, and generally residents had mixed reviews. However, when you look at the comparisons over time, most of these ratings increased, while the lower aspects, street maintenance, ease of traveling by public transportation, availability of downtown parking, and traffic congestion, were some of the lowest ratings that we saw across all survey items. Many of them did increase from 2010 to 2012. Additionally, they were much above the national and Front Range benchmark comparisons. Culture and recreation, as we know, is a huge aspect and very important in many communities in the Front Range, including the city of Fort Collins, and this was another priority that we assessed through the survey. We measured different aspects of culture and recreation, including opportunities for arts and culture, recreation opportunities, and the quality of the library services. 88% gave the quality of recreation opportunities very good or good ratings, and 84% felt that the quality of library services was very good or good. These ratings have remained stable since 2010. The quality of arts and cultural opportunities was somewhat lower than the other 2, however, still very positive feedback, 63% giving very good or good ratings to that aspect, and which was similar to 2010, and all of these ratings were much higher than the national and Front Range benchmark comparisons. We measured 19 different parks, recreation, and cultural programs and facilities. This slide here shows the 4 highest rated and the 4 lowest rated aspects. And you can see that even the lowest rated aspects, still 75% gave very good or good ratings to adult recreation programs. The highest rated was natural areas and open space, followed by recreation trails, parks, and the garden on Spring Creek. Generally, most of the ratings remained stable. Where we did see differences compared to 2010, ratings tended to increase in 2012. And again, most of these aspects of culture and recreation programs, where there were comparisons to the benchmark, they were much higher. The economic health of the city of Fort Collins also was measured through the survey. Residents were able to provide feedback on the city as a place to work. Generally, 3/4 felt that the city as a place to work was very good or good. This was an increase from 2010, when 70% gave the same ratings, very good or good, and this was above the national and Front Range benchmark comparisons. Several community aspects of the health of the economy were measured through the survey, and generally 2/3 or more of respondents gave positive ratings, very good or good, to each of the aspects. However, the availability of job opportunities received very good or good ratings from 31% of respondents. But this was similar when compared to 2010 ratings and was also much above the national and Front Range benchmark. We also asked a couple questions about the city's performance with economic health strategies as well as support of businesses in the city. And at least half or more gave very good or good ratings to each of these aspects. You can see that these did increase from 2010 to 2012. However, we did modify the wording of both of these items. In 2010, support of businesses was worded as overall support of businesses in Fort Collins, and economic health strategies was worded as overall economic health of Fort Collins. Due to the changes in wording, that might be partially attributable to the differences that we saw from 2010 to 2012. However, these are very strong ratings, and the support of businesses when compared to the national benchmark was much higher. We also had a large portion of the survey devoted to measuring the performance of the government. Overall, quality of city services was rated very highly. 85% of respondents gave very good or good ratings to this aspect. And this was an increase from 2010 to 2012, much above the benchmark and in the Front Range and across the nation. A couple of new questions were added to the survey in 2012 to gauge resident perspective about the utilities and utility billing overall. Overall, utilities were rated fairly highly, with 83% giving very good or good ratings. And utility billing also received high marks, with 76% giving very good or good ratings. Both of these aspects, when compared to the nation, were much higher. As in 2010, we conducted an analysis called a key driver analysis. A key driver analysis is something that is typically conducted in the private sector and is used to see what drives consumers back to a specific product or service. For the city of Fort Collins, we use this analysis to dig a little deeper. While we can ask residents to individually rate the importance of each service that the city provides, typically when we do directly ask respondents to rate the importance, core services such as fire safety, EMS, trash haul, water tend to fall at the top of the list. When we look at a key driver analysis, less obvious services, ones that are more influential of residents' ratings of the overall quality of services, tend to come out, and that's what we want to look at through the key driver analysis. We produced an action chart for the city of Fort Collins, which summarizes 3 key pieces of information. The black keys that you see are what have been determined from the analysis to be key drivers. This includes adult recreation programs, street maintenance, police services overall, golf courses, utility billing, and natural area ranger services. Each of these services was found to be highly correlated with ratings given to the overall quality of city services. The different colors that you can see in the boxes, the green, yellow, and red, indicate the comparison to the national benchmark. As you can see, generally comparisons were above the national benchmark. Only one was similar to, and there were 3 services for which we did not have a comparison. The other piece of information that we can see in this chart is comparison to the 2010 survey data. There are some black and white arrows that indicate an upward or downward trend. Only 2 services saw changes over time. That was street maintenance, which saw an increase and also was a key driver, and fire services overall saw a decrease in ratings, which was similar to the national benchmark. And looking at this action chart, what the city might want to focus on are those key drivers that are either below or similar to the benchmark, as well as are trending downward. And we did not find that any of the key drivers in 2012 showed any of these characteristics. So they might be areas in which the city might want to watch and keep an eye on to ensure the high quality that is currently being provided to residents to maintain that high overall quality of services rating. We measured several different aspects of the city government, and generally residents rated the government very highly, with 50% or more giving very good or good ratings to each of the 6 aspects. New to this question was encouraging sustainability in the community, which you can see was the top rated item in this list. And generally ratings increased when compared to 2010 and were much above both the national and Front Range benchmark comparisons. We did, however, modify some of the wording for 3 of the items: overall direction of the city, welcoming citizen involvement, and listening to citizens. Therefore, some of the differences that we see in those ratings between the 2 survey years could be due in part to those changes in question wording. Residents were given the opportunity to rate their interactions with city employees. We had 55% of respondents saying that they had had contact with a city employee in the 12 months prior to the survey, and this was an increase from the 2010 ratings. However, we did modify the question wording to include email as a type of contact in addition to phone and in-person contact, so that might have influenced that increase in ratings when looking across the survey years. Those who had contact were asked to rate 5 different aspects of their interaction with the employee, and generally residents were very happy with their interactions. At least 2/3 gave very good or good ratings, and generally these most of these items remain the same when compared to 2010. However, we did see an increase in ratings of promptness compared to 2010, and a slight decrease in the employee making the resident feel valued. Generally, these ratings were much higher or higher than the national and Front Range benchmarks. As in the 2 prior survey administrations, we asked residents to gauge the amount of effort they felt the city should put towards each of the 7 budgeting for outcome priorities. Transportation was the one that came out as more residents, the highest proportion of residents, wanting to see more effort being put towards this area, with 53% wanting more effort, 45% wanting the same effort, and only 2% wanting less effort. Generally, residents wanted to see the same amount of effort put towards most of the budget priorities. And when we look at the priorities compared over time, we're looking at the percent of respondents indicating that they want to see more effort given to each of these priorities. We can see generally for transportation and economy, there's been a downward trend in people wanting more effort to be put towards these priorities. Those remained at the top of the list. Environment, neighborhoods, culture and recreation, safety, and government have remained relatively stable as far as the percent of respondents wanting to see more effort being applied to these priorities. New to the 2012 survey, we allowed respondents who indicated more or less effort being put to each of the 7 priorities. We allowed them to write in their own words the services that they felt needed more or less effort. The list at the top are those services that needed more effort. We had 390 respondents write in a service needing more effort. We only had 70 respondents write in a service needing less effort. And you can see that transportation, traffic and road maintenance, economy and job growth, parks and recreation were areas that residents identified as needing more effort. Those that they felt less effort could be placed included police services, the government organization and functions overall, recycling and environmental sustainability efforts, as well as transportation. You can see that transportation is included in both of those lists, so there is a little bit of discrepancy between respondents as to where more or less effort should be placed. We also asked residents to rate the job the city does at informing citizens. As you can see, 2/3 felt that the city does a very good or good job at informing residents. This rating was much above the benchmark and also increased from 2010 to 2012. And we have seen an upward trend in this rating since 2006. We provided respondents with a list of 13 different sources of information and asked them to rate how frequently they used each of them to get information about city programs, issues, and policies. This shows the 4 most frequently used and the 4 less frequently used. Word of mouth, the newspaper, either print or online, the city's website, and the Recreator were those that residents most frequently used to get information about the city. Generally, these results stayed the same when compared to 2010. In looking at all of the results and comparisons to the benchmarks and comparisons to previous years, these are the conclusions that we have drawn about your citizen survey results. However, we realize that the City Council and city staff know better the opportunities for improvements and areas where more funding can be placed. I must say that I had a difficult time picking out the highlights. There are so many to choose from, but what we found was that residents are extremely happy with the quality of life and community in Fort Collins. They feel very safe and are appreciative of the safety services that are provided in the city. They felt the quality environment was very high, as well as recreational cultural opportunities were very prevalent. Some areas for opportunities could include transportation. However, I must say that this area fell into opportunities because it received some of the lowest ratings, and transportation always seems to be an issue in most communities. But the city is obviously improving and making improvements residents have noticed, and they have been rated much above both the national and Front Range benchmarks. So obviously the city is doing a very good job at that, so I would say keep up that good work. And job opportunities also seem to be another area where the city might potentially want to focus. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with the City of Fort Collins. Feel free to contact me with any questions that you might have.